I'm preparing this video as a review of some of the things that I've been able to learn about OBS Studio. Right now, I'm running OBS Studio in display capture mode, which means I'm capturing the entire display of my computer named Comp28. And I can move this around on the display. And Comp28 actually has several windows open right now, but most of them are minimized. I have a couple of File Explorer windows, and I have my old faithful graphics program, PaintShop Pro. I'll minimize that. I'm also running web browser. I can minimize that. And I'm running OBS Studio, and the big red circle there means that I'm recording. And that recording symbol is also in the OBS Studio window. I have these shortcuts on the taskbar for things that are not open. For example, DaVinci Resolve is available on my taskbar, but it's not open. However, LibreOffice is open. It's minimized, but the window is available. And right now it's LibreOffice Writer with the tutorial I'm working on for using OBS Studio. I'll minimize that again. Now, OBS is based on having scenes, and each scene has one or more sources. I have here created 7 different scenes, and they are all in the scene collection. It's possible to save scene collections and to recall them. So I've been practicing a lot, so I have a number of different scene collections. And you can, for each scene collection, you can make new ones, you can duplicate them, rename them, and so on. In the view area, I have the option to view something called the multi-view, either as a full screen view or as a windowed view. Let's do that. And here's a multi-view of OBS. And in the multi-view window, it has the preview area, the program area, and it has thumbnails of all the different scenes in the scene list. And by the way, right now I'm in studio mode. And if I'm in studio mode in this multi-view window, I can simply click on a scene and it'll jump into the preview area. So let's take a look at this scene called Start Scene. Each scene has one or more sources. The Start Scene has a text line. If I select that, it shows a box around that, and that's the active source. And when a source is active, you have options for that source that'll appear here. For example, in this text line source, I have this text, and I could actually go in here and edit the text. I can also change the font color and the font, and the properties will open up an entire dialog box, which gives me access to all the properties for that text source. And there's also a filter option. Filters are add-ons, and I've added this scrolling filter to my text. And in the scrolling filter, I've set a horizontal speed of 120 and no vertical speed, but that's an option. I also have a video capture device. That's what you see here. And that's my PTZ Optics webcam. It's possible to right-click on a source and rename it. So I'm going to rename this source PTZ Optics. Would be better if I could spell properly when I'm typing. Get back in here to rename and see if I can do optics a little better. OPTICS, optics. So you can take a source and you can right click on it, and there are all kinds of things you can do with that source. If you get into the transform area, you can actually fit the source to the screen, you can flip it, you can rotate it, do all kinds of things. In the case of the PTZ Optics webcam, okay, I'm looking right now at the PTZ Optics webcam, and it's possible with that source selected, I can move it around, I can resize it, and if I hold the Alt key down and grab this whole thing, I can actually crop that source. All kinds of things you can do. If I right click on that source and I go to transform, I can say center it horizontally, and it fixes that. Okay, so the start scene has three sources. It has text line, the webcam, and a color source. When I select the color source, you notice it's possible to get in here and apply these different properties. I could select a different color for it, but since I named this color source blue, I don't think I'll make it something other than blue. Here's a scene that has multiple sources, or mixed sources. It has a text box, and the text box is there. I can move that around when it's selected. I can resize it. And it also has the PTZ Optics webcam. In this case, the cam has not been cropped. It's been full size. It's the full size and shape of the webcam, but it's resized on the screen. Once again, if I wanted to hold the Alt key down, I could crop this webcam and move it around a little bit. Here I have a graphic source, and I've named that graphic source Lily, and I have another graphic source that I've named Winter, and I have a color source here. This one I'm using the green color. If I wanted to add another graphic image, I could choose the plus, and I could say image, and then I could either use an existing image over again, or I could create a new image. And if I say create a new image, it'll give me the opportunity to browse through my web browser, and I could select a picture. This would be silly, but let me do that. And there it is. Okay. And there's my new image. Get a little bigger, put it over here, put it here. Let me just show you a trick. Notice that this image is on top of the winter scene. If I select that image, which by the way, I did not name, I just called it image. It's a better idea when you're adding sources to, as you go, to name the sources as something that makes sense. So let's rename that to mug shot, so I can keep track of them. Now watch what happens if I move that mug shot down, and I can move it down by using this arrow. Move it down, down, down. Now it's below the winter scene. Let's put it over here so it's a little more obvious what's going on. Okay, I have it overlapping several things. Notice that the color source green source is on the bottom of the stack. The mugshot now is next to the bottom. However, if I move it up, it gets in front of different things. I can also just drag this down if I want to change its position. So all of these variations are possible within the sources. Let's look at another scene. Let's look at the scene with an NDI source. The NDI source in this case it's a mystery because I haven't renamed it. So let's go to properties and see what it really is. The NDI source is actually coming from my computer 27, and there it is in there. So this is the screen capture. Actually, it's a live screen capture from my Comp27. And the way this is done is you have to download and install the NDI tools on each computer that you want to use as an NDI source. In this case, I'm actually using 3 different computers, and you see them here. I'm using Comp26, Comp27, and Comp24. All 3 of those, I've gone in and installed NDI tools, and in the NDI tools, now let's see here, Comp24 scene. Here's a scene that just has the NDI Comp24 scene, and right now over in Comp24 in my network computer, I actually have the NDI screen open. And that's where I went and chose this for screen capture option. It's the NDI tools, and that allowed me to catch the screen and add it as an NDI source in this particular scene. Okay, we did mix sources. We did the Comp24 scene. Display capture is normal and is capturing anything that's on this Comp28 display. Here's a scene that says Capture LibreOffice, and I do have LibreOffice running in a window here, but if I go to that scene, it's going to capture LibreOffice Writer open to the document that is open currently in that window. And you see here that I have a text source that says LibreOffice Writer, and when I have the text source selected, I have these options for selecting the font or selecting a color. Okay, and etc. This is the scene that has the 3 different sources, 3 different NDI sources, in addition to the camera and the color source blue. And this is a source that this is a scene we saw before with the NDI source, which is unnamed but is Comp27. Okay, so we have all these scenes, and each scene can have multiple sources, and when we're in a scene, we can select a source and we can modify that source. Every time you select a source, it'll have a colored box around it, and you can mess with that. So if I didn't want my colored box to fill the whole display, I could drag it around. I could also right-click on that source and select Transform and say Fit to Screen. Now, we've been running in studio mode, and we're recording. There's one other thing that I've gone ahead and done. I've created some hotkeys. If I get into the settings option, it's possible to go to hotkeys, and you can define hotkeys for almost any function available in OBS. I've set the insert key for starting and stopping recording, but I've also gone down here and I've established a hotkey, in this case a simple number 6, as a hotkey to jump to that or to switch to that scene. Let me show you how this works. Right now, I have hotkeys set for this first scene. Hotkey 2 is set for this one. Hotkey 3 is set for this one. Hotkey 4, 5, 6, 7, and you see how that is. Now, I'm going to switch to studio mode. I'm going to switch from studio mode out of studio mode to just show the record window. And now I'm in the scene that's a display capture, but now I'm going to run through the 7 scenes by using the hotkeys. Here's scene 1. Oh, by the way, why did that Why did that slide like that? That's because in the scene transition, I'm using the slide option. I could use this fade option so that when I choose my next scene, it fades. Or I can set my scene transition to slide or any of these various options. Okay, so now I'm looking at my first scene, which is start scene. Here's scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, scene 5, and scene 6, and scene 7, and although we're looking at the full, in the recording, we're looking at the full scene 7, on my display on Comp 28, I'm actually seeing OBS Studio. So I can actually just click on any of the scenes in the multi-view window and jump around, or I can click on the scene in the scene list, but what you see on the recording is actually whatever is going on in the, let's go back to display capture. What you see in the recording is whatever's in the record window or the program window here, but you will only see that right now because I'm in the display capture mode. Let me turn studio mode back on, and again you should be able to see the multiple scenes here. So hotkeys, very powerful. If I was going to use this during a live production, it would make sense for me to rename the scene and maybe say, let's jump over here and say 1. And it would make sense to show in the scene name the hotkey that's actually being used for that scene. Well, this is more than enough. This is about 18, I see a little over 18 minutes worth of recording. I'm going to go ahead and jump to, by using the transition button here, jump to scene 1, and then I'm going to use my hotkey, the insert key, to stop this recording. Well, I've stopped the recording using my insert key, and I've restarted another recording using my insert key. There are a couple of things that I need to mention that I didn't mention the first time around. Let me go back to, in the preview mode, let me go back to my mixed sources scene. And remember, in the mixed sources scene, I had added a mugshot. Well, notice that in the sources list, there's this little eye tool, and that means you can turn a source on or off. So even though you have many sources in the list, they don't all have to be displayed at the same time. You can toggle them on and off. Also, notice there's a lock here. If a source is not locked, you can get in and mess with it. You can move it around or whatever. However, in the case of this camera source, if I lock that, I no longer have the little red box around there. So now this camera is locked in place. I cannot move that source within my scene when the lock tool is on. Also, we talked about the transition here. We can transition from one scene to another, and that transition will use whatever transition is selected from the list of different transitions. You can also add to this transition area quick transitions. In this case, I've added the cut transition as a quick transition. Cut, cut, and it cuts between the last two scenes, the ones that are program and preview. Also notice that there is this little T-bar, and you can use that. Right now I'm on the I'm on the slide transition, and notice I can use that to control, or with just dragging that thing, I can control back and forth between that. I can also add a number of transitions to the list, and I've added the cut transition here so that I can do a quick cut and back again. And if I click here, I could add a fade to black option. And so now if I click on this in my quick transition list, fade to black. Now I cut back to that, and now I'm going to cut back to the display capture scene. So quite a number of different options here, and the hotkeys will allow you to do a lot of maneuvering between scenes when you're broadcasting, or I'm sorry, either broadcasting, streaming that would be, or recording. And if you would like to, you can switch to the studio mode being off and just having the scene recording, and you can jump between scenes. What you see in the recording is now the start scene, or scene number 1, in the whole screen. When I switch to studio mode on my display, you can't tell that I've done that because I'm showing you scene number 1 on the recording. If I go back to the display capture scene, then you can see what I'm doing. Even while I'm recording on one of the scenes, I have OBS Studio open on my computer. Now, in this case, you're looking at the scene that's the display capture scene, so you're seeing everything that I see. If I go to scene 1 and then cut to that, now you're not seeing what I see. You're seeing scene 1. However, I'm seeing live on my computer the OBS Studio. So I can actually jump to different scenes and then say cut to that scene, and I could press a hotkey and jump to a scene. And as long as I'm in studio mode, when I use a hotkey, go back here to display capture. When I'm in studio mode and I use a hotkey, it's only choosing what's going into the preview area, and what's in that preview area will not move to the recording area until I ask it to. And I ask it by using one of the transitions. Well, hopefully this will be enough to give you an overview of some of the things that you can do with OBS Studio.